Hello, my name's Dave Pier. I'm going to be working on this course with you guys. I thought it would be a nice idea to start off by talking a little bit about what is philosophy. I guess one thing it isn't is the preserve of brilliant but eccentric thinkers who are divorced from the concerns of the world. Philosophy, I think you could say, broadly answers some fundamental questions like what is the nature of truth, or what is good, or how should we live, or what is beauty. It's basically the ability to reason writ large. Philosophy, perhaps not surprisingly, grows out of mythology. And when you think about it, mythology tries to answer those questions as well. Why are we here? What is right behavior? What sort of consequences are there when we don't behave well? Think of creation myths, for example. Greece, as it turns out, in ancient times, was the place, at least in Western philosophy, where the cultural conditions existed for this sort of reasoned approach to answering these questions took root. So think of it this way. I mean, people believed because they had a mythological understanding of, the gods created the earth or created people. Philosophers began to say, is that true? And then went beyond that to say, hang on, wait a minute, what is truth? I was talking about Greece in ancient times. In ancient times, there were the conditions that allowed for a certain amount of stability and abundance in Greece. And those two things, the stability of a culture that had defenses so that it wasn't necessarily always being attacked by outsiders, and an agricultural or food surplus so that not everybody in that particular group had to constantly be working at creating food so that people wouldn't starve to death. They formed themselves into little city-states, or polis as we call them, maybe as many as a couple of thousand people in each one. And they began to develop, because of this surplus, they began to develop things like art, architecture, government, and philosophy. The purpose of this course is to examine the specialized branches of philosophy, and I'm reading this because I want to make sure that I get it exactly right for you, and develop critical and philosophical reasoning skills. And so that means that you're going to formulate and evaluate arguments related to a variety of philosophical theories and questions. I started out by asking, what is philosophy? I mentioned that philosophy was based on reason. But another thing that philosophy is words, and primarily written words. Case in point, Plato, who we're going to hear more about, he was sort of the granddaddy of Western philosophy. He wrote a lot about philosophy. But he saved what he thought were his most prized idea, his most sacred ideas, in what he called his unwritten doctrines. And he would only tell them to his closest inner circle of students. The reason for that is because he felt that the spoken word was purer. It allowed for a kind of back and forth, and that's true. He also was worried about these ideas being so pure and sacred, falling into the hands of stupid people, for lack of a better term. At any rate, the only way that we know about these really important core ideas of Plato's are that his students wrote them down. So, words it is. Over time, perhaps not surprisingly, philosophy has become really specialized. And like any specialized field of knowledge, it has its own lexicon, its own set of words that people use in the discipline to refer to important ideas. That's part of this course, understanding those things. I want to say there's nothing in this course that you don't need to know. There's no busy work. And I guess the other thing is, don't get behind on writing. 3 of the words that I want you to know about are ontology, ethics, and epistemology. Ontology is the study of being or existence. So an ontologist wants to know, what do we mean when we say that something exists? Ethics, is a word you're probably familiar with, has to do with the study of moral and social behavior. So how do we know, an ethicist would ask, how people should act? And finally, epistemology is the study of knowing. In other words, what does it mean when we say that we know something? I hope you find the course engaging and challenging. I hope you learn a lot. We'll talk to you soon.